so thrilled to be here. It was definitely worth the flight on my first trip to Louisville. Thank you to the city, to everybody for being so welcoming and getting a chance to really get to know it. So I kind of wanted to start by taking us back to New York City in the 1970s. And so if you can picture it, if you were alive then, even if you weren't, it was a city that was definitely in decay. So lots of crime, infrastructure failing, and the city's parks were in shambles, including the iconic Central Park, which was Frederick Law Olmsted Sr.'s first design with Calvert Vaux. And so there was one person who really led this charge. I think we all owe a debt of gratitude. One person, but one woman specifically, and that is Betsy Barlow Rogers. She saw in Central Park when she moved to New York City that the sheep meadow was a dust bowl. There were 50,000 square feet of, I don't know how they counted this, 50,000 square feet of graffiti covering every surface in the park. And the Bethesda Terrace, which is, definitely iconic, was in shambles. So she lobbied the city to get some resources, and then eventually in 1980 she founded the Central Park Conservancy. And this was really the start of the Park Conservancy movement in the US. So we go back to that. And at that same time, there was a group of women who met in Buffalo, New York, and they formed my organization, which was then called the National Association for Olmsted Parks, and is now the Olmsted Network. And these four mothers are equally as impactful, and I just want to name them because they deserve that. So Joan Bozer, Betsy Shergross, Caroline Laughlin, Tupper Thomas, Caroline Etter, Arlene Levy, Ann Satterthwaite, Noni Ames, and Vicki Rennie. So we owe a lot to them for stepping up and protecting these amazing assets in so many cities in the country. And it's a similar, from what I understand, I'm new to Louisville, this is my first time here, but Louisville's parks, is Olmsted Parks, were also in despair, like they were decrepit as well. And again, you had women stepping up to make a difference, including Susan Rademacher, who you will hear from later. So these women all had something in common. They were formidable, they were audacious, and I would say they were difficult, probably. They would have been described as difficult. And I'm sure a lot of women here today have been described as such, but difficult women get things done. So I think that's really, take us back to the present day. And I wish I could say that a lot has changed. The name Olmsted is known by more people. Maybe more people recognize the importance of these landscapes. But there still are threats to them, and we're seeing that every day. So with the Olmsted Network, we have the benefit of talking to a lot of different people who are working in parks across North America. And there are the same threats that they see, that we see everywhere. They're just, and then the biggest ones that we're seeing really are encroachment. So bits and pieces of parks are being taken for different things. So whether there's something that is landed in the middle, like a structure that somebody decided would be great in the middle of this park, there's that. Or, little bits and pieces being taken off of the side too, because the jurisdiction views the space as yet to be, it's just undeveloped. It has yet to be developed. They're not recognizing the vital importance of public space, and green space in particular, and how that is, as Rachel said, a cornerstone of our democracy, and a cornerstone to what Olmsted was thinking when he made these very thoughtful designs. And the other piece that is maybe more of an existential threat is the public-private partnership, which these conservancies are founded on. So you have, usually the park is owned, the land is owned by the jurisdiction, whether that is the city, the county, the state, federal in the case of the National Park Service, you have then an understanding with this outside entity, a nonprofit group, that is raising all this money to fill in the gaps. And there's an agreement that if it's violated on the nonprofit side, then there's a problem. But if it's violated on the city side, you don't have a problem. Like, there's nothing holding anybody to that. And so this becomes, a big issue for these parks, because then they don't get the care that they need, the maintenance that they need. And so I would just kind of put out there for Louisville and for cities across the country that we need difficult women now more than ever. So to all of you who are out there, please, keep the charge going. Let's protect these landscapes. Thank you very much.